The switch component is a versatile tool that allows you to control different states and execute various functions when the state changes. These functions can include setting the value of a specific bit address, transferring data to a PLC, performing window operations, and more. The bit set switch is a unique component that sets the value of the internal bit address of the HMI or the bit address of the PLC connected to the HMI. It includes several functions: on, off, inverse, reset, on pulse, and off pulse. Let's walk through the steps to create a bit set switch. Step 1. Navigate to Component Switch, Bit Set from the menu bar. A dialog box will appear. Configure the bit setting property. Here's a breakdown of the parameters you'll need to set. Condition. Action. This includes press and release actions. Register trigger. The switch is activated by a change in the value of the register. Click Settings to establish the trigger conditions. Action. After an action is performed on the bit set switch, or when the trigger conditions are met, the following steps need to be executed. On. Set the value of the specified bit address to on. Off. Set the value of the specified bit address to off. Inverse. Reverse the value of the specified bit address. Reset. When the bit set switch is pressed, or when the trigger conditions are met, the value of the bit address is set to on. When the bit set switch is released, or when the trigger conditions are not met, the value of the bit address is set to off. On pulse, set a rising edge pulse of a specified time width for the bit address. Off pulse, set a falling edge pulse of a specified time width for the bit address. Use address tag. Use tag values to map commonly used addresses. Device. This could be HMI local registers, recipe registers, or PLC registers. Bit index within a word register. To present a bit address in a word register, the format is DDDDDD, for example, 799,999.15. Address type, please refer to the actual situation. Address, the address number of the register, please refer to the actual situation. Address index, change the current address with the value of the specified word address. Set up an indicator light. Select the Indicator Light tab and check Use Indicator. For detailed configuration information about the indicator light, please refer to the Indicator Light section. Customize the graphics. Select the Graphics tab, choose the graphics, and use them to enhance the bit set switch interface. Configure the control settings. Select the Control Settings tab and adjust the relevant parameters. Here's a breakdown of the parameters you'll need to set. Conditional. The bit set switch can only be operated when a specified condition is met. Level user. Operate the bit set switch only when the HMI user's level reaches or exceeds the set level. Privilege user. Operate the bit set switch only when the HMI user has the specified privilege. Logic control. The bit set switch can only be operated when specific logical conditions are met, such as the value of LB0 is on and the value of LB1 is off. Keyboard. When an external keyboard is used with the HMI, the switch control function can be implemented through the external keyboard keys. Minimum press time. It takes effect when the duration of pressing the switch reaches the set value. Require confirmation prior to execution. When checked, an operation confirmation dialog box will pop up when the switch is touched to prevent accidental operation. Waiting time. The display time of the operation confirmation dialog box. Minimum operation interval. The minimum interval time for repeated operations. Keyboard lost focus. Whether the auxiliary X icon is displayed when an external keyboard is used. Step 6. Click OK to finalize the creation of your bit set switch. Stay tuned for more in-depth tutorials on other components. The word set switch is a component that performs operations, such as addition, on the value of the internal word register of the HMI or the word register of the PLC connected to the HMI. Here's how you can create a word set switch. Step 1. Navigate to Component. Switch. Word set from the menu bar to open the interface. Step 2. Configure the word setting property and click OK. Here's a detailed guide on how to set the parameters. Action. This includes press or release actions. The default action is press, which means that the operation is performed when the component is pressed. You can also choose release, which means that the operation is performed when the pressed component is released. Register trigger. Changes in the state of the register can trigger switch actions. Click Settings to set the trigger conditions. Action. After performing an action or when the trigger conditions are met, perform the corresponding operation. Add. Add the addend. The addend can be set as a constant or a variable. When the value of the word address plus the value of the addend reaches the maximum limit value, the addend will not be added when performing an action on the word set switch again. The maximum limit value can be set as a constant or a variable. When using a variable, the data type of the variable must be consistent with the data type of the set word register. Otherwise, calculation errors may occur. Subtract. Subtract the subtrahend. The subtrahend can be set as a constant or a variable. When the value of the word address minus the value of the subtrahend reaches the minimum limit value, the subtrahend will not be subtracted when performing an action on the word set switch again. Increase. The difference between increment and addition is that add performs the operation once when a word setting switch is operated. Even if the word setting switch is continuously pressed, the add operation is only performed once. On the other hand, increment performs the add operation continuously as long as the word setting switch is continuously pressed, until it is released or the value reaches the set maximum limit value. Decrease. The properties and settings of decrement are similar to those of increment. When the word setting switch is continuously pressed, the decrement operation will be continuously performed until it is released or the value of the word address reaches the minimum limit value. Set up constants. Set a specified data for the word address. The data can be a constant or a variable. Set up character strings. Set a string for the word address. Check Unicode to indicate that the set string is encoded in Unicode. To display the string correctly, the Unicode encoding must be used. Otherwise, the string may not be displayed correctly. Check UTF-8 to indicate that the set string is encoded in UTF-8. Check byte, swapping to swap the high byte and low byte of the specified string and write it to the specified word register address. Set up figures by bit. Represents performing an addition or subtraction operation on a certain bit of the value of the specified word address. The setup figures by bit operation is only applicable to 16-bit unsigned numbers, 32-bit unsigned numbers, and 64-bit unsigned numbers. Logical operation. The modes of logical operation include AND, OR, XOR, and NOT. Operand. The default is a constant with a data format of hexadecimal. It can also be a variable, but when selecting a variable, make sure that the data type of the operand matches the data type of the specified register address. The logical operation supports register data types of 16-bit unsigned number, 32-bit unsigned number, 64-bit unsigned number, 16-bit BCD, and 32-bit BCD format. Looping. When the action is set to add, if the looping option is checked, an additional parameter, lower limit, will appear. When the value of the word address is added to the upper limit value, continuing to operate the word setting switch will cause the addend value to continue to increase from the set lower limit value with each operation, and so on in a loop. When the action is set to subtract, if the looping option is checked, an additional parameter, upper limit, will appear. When the value of the word address is subtracted to the lower limit value, continuing to operate the word setting switch will cause the subtrahend value to continue to decrease from the set upper limit value with each operation, and so on in a loop. Reverse on reaching the limit. When the action is set to add, if the reverse on reaching the limit option is enabled, when the value of the word address reaches the upper limit value, continuing to operate the word setting switch will cause the value to gradually decrease to the lower limit value. When the lower limit value is reached, if the word setting switch is operated again, such as pressing it, the value will gradually increase to the upper limit value, and so on in a loop. When the action is set to subtract, if the reverse on reaching the limit option is enabled, when the value of the word address is reduced to the lower limit value, Continuing to operate the word setting switch will cause the value to start increasing from the lower limit value up to the upper limit value. Continuing to operate the word setting switch, such as pressing it, will cause the value to gradually decrease to the lower limit value, and so on in a loop. Each time the operation is performed, the value changes by the value set in the subtrahend. Use address tag. You can use tag values to map addresses. Use recipe index. When a new recipe is created in the project, recipe data items will generate related addresses that can be directly indexed and used by components. Device. This could be HMI local register, recipe register, or register of PLC. Address type. Please refer to the actual situation. For example, LW refers to the internal word register of the HMI. Data is not saved when power is lost. RW refers to the internal word register of the HMI. Data is saved when power is lost, and the address range is 0-524-288. SRW refers to the internal special register of the HMI, and the address range is 0-11023. Address. The address numbers for registers should be based on the actual situation. Address index. You can use the value of a specified word address to change the current address. For example, if the current address is set to LW1, the address index to LW2, and the offset to 3, then the actual address would be LW1 plus the value of LW2 plus 3. Step 3. Set properties such as indicator light, graphics, control setting, etc., and click OK.